Welcome to another episode of Fans in Motion, the Ultimate Night Ranger podcast. Hey, we're running out of shit sometimes to talk to. Plus, we got some stuff coming up that we're planning. So, me and Dave were talking. Dave is the guy right there, Florida man, bath salts, hot weather. He walks around usually without a shirt on. So the ladies tell me. We were talking about live albums. And we're like, you know what? Let's talk about our favorite live albums, what we deem essential live albums from the 1970s. Right, Dave?
And we're going to do this for other. We're going to do the '80s eventually, and we're going
We
to try
are?
different things. But
We are?
today
News to
we're
me.
focused on this.
News
We
to me.
are, yes,
All
sir.
right. But now we're doing the 70s. Live records. Maybe not like it's not we're not doing like a documentary here. What were the biggest ones? We're doing the ones that we enjoyed, the ones that we deem essential. And we'll try to make some Night Ranger connections to them, right? Unfortunately, Rubicon did not release a live record now. There is some Rubicon Live on Cal Jam 2 record. You could say the Cal Jam 2 live record is your favorite live record.
Is That's right? That's
Oh,
right.
look at that. Fucking came up with that on the spot. But, all right. Live records. Now, we and Dave talked a little bit. Dave doesn't know mine. I had to go, where are you going with this, buddy? So I want to talk about some live records from the 70s that I know we didn't pick. Now, let's talk about live records in the 70s. Live records back then were sometimes released for different reasons. Sometimes it was a stopgap. Hey, bands were putting out sometimes two records a year, studio records. If there was going to be a little gap, sometimes they would do a live record. It was cheap and easy to produce. Um, Sometimes it was more, I think, into the 80s
To
is
fulfill a contract.
to fulfill a contract. Okay, we got Night Ranger is a good one. Night Ranger had seven records. They did five, two records on the contract. What did they do? Greatest hits, live in Japan. So, live records, back then, I don't, they were really a sign of maybe you were going downhill. But then some live records really took off and changed that perception. Um,
I think greatest hits records were more
Greatest hits
going
definitely.
downhills. Yeah, like
Well, you could say that or signify the end of a career. Now, you could also argue against that with Eagles, that blue greatest hits when that was released. You know, the Eagles hadn't released Hotel California in the long run, and they had their biggest success after that greatest hits. So yeah, I mean, you could argue back and forth, but for the most part, the greatest hits sometimes signified when a band was done. Um, Now, um, when I think of a live album, Hot August Nights, Neil Diamond,
Neil
that
Diamond.
album cover, I think about that sometimes, especially, doing thrift stores. I find a lot of Neil Diamond shit in thrift stores. But I grabbed just some out of the record collection. Humble Pie, Rockin' the Fillmore, um, Peter Frampton, Steve Marriott, Eddie Kramer engineered this. So there you are. Um, I think most of our generation remembers Jay Giles as Freeze Frame and Centerfold, but used to be a gritty New York band, New Jersey, New York, somewhere like that. This is 1972. Um, but an era that a lot of people, if they just got into it from, the early 80s, um, weren't familiar with. I think the one that kicked it all off, though, you could argue, there's a few you could throw in there.
Frampton Comes Alive, yes, sir.
I mean, what was it like Wayne's World, where I think they talk about everybody was issued this record. It was just like it was given to you in 1976. Uh, I mean, obviously you got um, Do You Feel Like We Do? And even like Show Me the Way. It's just better
You hear
on,
more of that on you would hear
yeah,
more of that on radio than you would hear of their studio record, of the studio song.
yeah. So, I mean, everybody had this. And I wasn't even alive when it came out, and I know everybody had it. Um, so those are just some, and yeah, I mean, we could go on and on. We're not going to hit, every record. I mean, all these bands had some type of big live album probably in the 70s or had a live record. Um, don't know where I was going with
Rush had
that.
9 of them, right?
But yeah, there was a lot of records, and um our criteria is it has to be a live record released in the 70s. So there's a lot of, with there just not being new material, there's Kiss released a soundboard recording from 1977 a couple years ago. Well, we're not counting that. Even though it's a 70s recording, it was released. Um, it was released, just a few years ago.
Creedence Clearwater had that album like that as well.
The Live at the Royal Hall or something like
Royal
that,
Royal Albert Hall,
a 19 late
71.
71 recording, released a couple years ago. I did talk to the guys in Night Ranger and I brought up, hey, what was your favorite live record in the 70s? And I got responses, so I'm going to give you theirs at the very end. You can see right there some Kerry Kelly and Eric Levy just got back to me. So there we go. Uh, so Dave,
Yes, sir.
1970. Now here's the thing, you're a little bit older than me. I look at this from a different perspective because was born in 77. I wasn't experiencing this shit when it first came out. I'm getting this stuff late 80s, 90s. So I got a different mind frame maybe. Um, and I look basically at all this in a historical aspect. Now, some of these records meant something to me as a teenager. Um, but that's for me. Like I said, I never got to experience picking up these records new in the record store in 1977 or whatever. I don't know about you, but bring that up when you're talking about
Sure, sure.
these records. So yeah, give me your first one of your essentials.
So one of my essentials, and this album is similar to what you were saying about Peter Frampton. There are songs on that album that, they're only known they're only known as the live versions. People don't really know the studio versions of albums of certain songs. And my first one from 1978 is Cheap Trick live at Budokan. Tell me the last time you heard I Want You to Want Me studio version. You're always hearing the live version, no matter where I mean, and you can kind of say the same thing with Surrender, because this was actually the tour of the Surrender album. Um,
And
because they announced it on when they're in the beginning of the song. This is a song from our brand new album. Just came out this last week. Surrender. So
I think the story on this was originally released in Japan only, and it somehow got to the States. they started playing I Want You to Want Me from this, and their label Epic hurried up and got this released in the States. Now, you someone out there can tell me whether I'm right or I'm wrong.
I've heard this version of the song years before I actually listened to the studio version of I Want You to Want Me because this it was what they were playing on the radio.
So how did you first, was this your first, experience with Cheap Trick?
Well, so I really didn't get into Cheap Trick until the 80s. So this was not the first song I ever remember getting into with Cheap Trick was She's Tight, just because
Yep.
that blasted on the radio. And then I was like, well, I got to go down the rabbit hole. And then, Hello, then I got to Hello There. And that's when I decided because I got the album and I don't remember which album it was that had I Want You to Want Me on it. And I'm like, this is not what I hear on the radio. This is not what they play. I mean, it just sounds so different. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, so that's when I did research or the research I could do then. And they're like, oh, that's the live record from Live at Budokan, an essential live record. So I
And
picked it up on cassette.
Night
Probably
Ranger just played Budokan.
that's right.
Yep.
That's right. So there's your tie-in to a
There
Night
we
Ranger, one of your
go.
tie-ins.
Yeah. Um, did you, so if a band didn't have a greatest hits, I would sometimes seek out their live record because it generally had their best songs on it.
True, true.
Is that something you did?
I always try to get so when I wasn't into a band, I always went and tried to get their greatest hits, especially if I only know, their hits, or if I didn't want to
If
go
you
down
only
that rabbit
yeah, if
hole.
you only knew Sister Christian.
Right, right. I would get Night Ranger's greatest hits. Not the case with Night Ranger, of course, but I remember before I got into Triumph, I got their greatest hits because I loved every song on it, and then I started buying individual Triumph albums. Um, my favorite greatest hits album, by the way, is the Triumph greatest hits.
So is he playing an
But I would.
Ibanez Iceman there?
What's that?
I think he's playing an Ibanez Iceman there. There's probably some Cheap Trick fan going, no, yeah, duh, he played those all the time. But yeah, I don't know. But so you realized right away that hey, this isn't the version I hear on the radio.
Right. And that's what drew me to this live album because I'm like, well, if that song is so much better on a live record, then other songs have to be that way. And it was the case with Surrender. And it was the case with what's the other one? What's the other big one from there? Ain't That a Shame? That's amazing live.
Yeah, some bands just, you need some bands just sounded better with that rawness. Now, all these records that we're talking about, there can be debate on how truly live they are. All
Correct.
right. Were they touched up in the studio, stuff like that? I don't know the history of this as much as I do other records.
I would think Josh, all live albums are touched up in the studio somewhere before they're
Well, I
released.
think you're going to have some more than others. Um, but again, I don't know how this one is. Um, again, I didn't, Cheap Trick. None of my friends really liked Cheap Trick. They just weren't around. Again, I'm younger and I
Right, 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 right.
graduated in 95. Um, so like none of like the older people I were with had Cheap Trick. So it was something I had to discover on my own. I probably would say I've probably gotten the Cheap Trick more the last 10 years than I did um, any other time. I will say one of the best naps I ever had was at a Cheap Trick concert.
Wow.
Um,
Really, Josh.
nothing against them, but I saw Cheap Trick and Peter Frampton. I was with my girlfriend at the time. It was at the High State Fair, middle of August, hot as fuck, right? We go to the concert. It's inside. It's air conditioned. I always get seats mostly I get them farther back where there's a rise just because you're over everybody else and the seats are padded. And I sat down. Cheap Trick comes on. It's that air conditioning just cooling me. Pretty girl next to me. I lay on her shoulder. And next thing
Did
I
did
know,
did,
I
did you
j-
did you know her, or did her boyfriend get pissed that you were leaning on her shoulder,
yeah, I
or did
mean,
you go there with her?
it was her boyfriend I was leaning on. But no, it was the girl I was with. And like I said, I woke up and Cheap Trick's not on stage. And yeah, that was just a fucking awesome, nice, cool nap. You got the sweat, and then the cool air hitting you. It's fucking awesome. One of my best concert memories. Uh, but yeah, I did see him again. I've seen him a few times opening. Um, then how did I see him? I saw him at the Rose not too long ago, opening for someone. I don't know, ZZ Top
I
maybe.
saw them in the early '90s at a club, just a regular rock club. They were,
Yeah.
it was kind of that thing where grunge was
Well,
in, and
they were definitely a band that took a hit. I mean, I remember Motley Crue when they got back together with Vince Neil. Cheap Trick opened that tour. So here's your reunion tour with Motley Crue, Cheap Trick opening, and they're only playing 3,000 seaters. So if that tells you anything. And Cheap Trick's just one of those bands, like, I don't know if they're truly a headlining band, but, like they seem to open for everybody.
everybody.
And I will give them some credit, maybe. Like, you go see them, it's like half hits, half deep tracks. Now, I'm not a Cheap Trick fan, so there's half the songs I don't fucking know. And then, I leave going, they didn't play that hit, that hit, that hit. But if you're a hardcore Cheap Trick fan,
Well, like I
you're
said, this
happy.
was in the '90s, and there was maybe 300 people in the play. It was a
Uh,
small club, and some dude jumps on the stage, trying to jam with Rick Nielsen, and you just see Bunny Carlos just get out of behind the drum set and toss his ass off the stage. It was hysterical. Just lifted him up, and
yeah, I mean, definitely a unique visual band. I mean, they make fun of it all. That's why you have the pretty guys on the front covers, and you have the ugly guys
yes.
on the back covers. So,
But that was the Rick Nielsen with the six neck guitar, and yeah.
yeah. But yeah. And little Night Ranger info, Mark Newman, Brad's original guitar tech, is actually guitar teching for Rick Nielsen right now. Any of the parting words on Cheap Trick
No,
live at
it's just
Budokan?
it's just an album I play all the time just because I
Mhm.
love the sound of it. And you could tell it would definitely had to go through some studio things. I mean, as good as it sounds, um, but I listen to it a lot.
So I'm going to do what I hate. I
What do you
said
hate?
I pick three, but I'm going to throw out a couple that need to be mentioned.
Okay, is this a mention or is this a three?
No, these are just mentions. Elvis
Okay.
Aloha from Hawaii. I spent many a drunken night watching my Elvis Aloha from Hawaii DVD at 3 in the morning coming home from the bar. Fucking love this record. Um, you gotta go if you want some good live Elvis. You gave me a mountain, American
I
Trilogy.
might have that album. I bought a
So,
bunch of Elvis. I
so
might
there
have
you
that album.
go. Bada bing. Um, this time you gave me a mountain and American Trilogy. Go find it. Another live album. Some fans either love it or hate it. It's a good record. One of my favorite live songs of all time is on it. Grand Funk. Um, find the live version of Inside Looking Out and crank it. That song is how I check speakers. Inside Looking Out, 12 minutes long, phenomenal record. Uh, if you watch the 70's rock and romance episode, Mark Farner, lead vocalist, guitar player, was on that rock and romance cruise. I look over, here's Kelly Kagi and Mark Farner talking. And, when we were leaving the boat, I got their pictures together. And at the airport, we're all just waiting, killing time. And I went over to Mark because he was talking to some other artists. I'm like, Mark, you want me, I'd already met him once on the boat.
Right.
And he gave me his phone number. Like, hey, take my phone number. I was like, do you want me to take some? He's like, yeah. So I took some photos of him with these other artists and sent them to him. And then me and him just started chatting. So again, there's nothing going on. Our flights are 5 hours away. So we talked 15, 20 minutes. I leave and whatever, talking to other people. Eventually, I'm talking to Brad. And I then go talk to someone else. And next thing I know, I'm talking to Mark Farner again. Like, hey, you want to go meet? I think Brad Gillis over here played with the Aussie Night Ranger. I'm sure he'd love to meet you. I don't fucking know, But yeah, come on. So me and Mark Farner, and here I am. Hey, Brad, this is Mark Farner from Grand Funk. Mark, this is Brad, lead guitarist for Night Ranger, played with Ozzy. And next thing you know, these guys are chatting for 30 minutes. So if you would have ever told me I would have introduced Mark Farner to Brad Gillis, I would have said, give me those drugs that you're on. So my first of three records,
Okay.
probably not a stretch, because if you're into the 70s rock, this has got to be an essential record. So essential that you could put your name like in the style font on the record and people would know what you're doing. And that is Live Bullet by Bob Seger. Um, the little stuff.
The greatest two-part song of all time.
Are you um,
Traveling Man, Beautiful Loser.
yep. And it's kind of like what you were saying. Um, Turn the Page from this is more popular than the
Yeah.
studio version.
Yeah.
Um, and this is one of those things where Bob Seger had album after album that were mostly failures. And the album he released before this, Night Moves, I can't remember, it had started taking off. So this, I don't know if it was kind of like the stopgap. Okay, we might have a hit record here. Now, here's the thing is he could go play Detroit and play in front of 50,000 people and then go play Wisconsin the next night in front of 2,000. He was very localized. But I think that's maybe kind of the thought process. Okay, we're finally having a hit. We need something in between for this next record we hope's a hit. And this just happened to take off. Um, but it's got everything. It's got, like rock soul. It's got heavy rock. It's got, stuff like Jody Girl, which is a little bit more relaxing. Uh, Ramblin' Gamblin' Man, Catmandu, and it's got the horns and that big rock 70s sound. It just to me it always transported me back to like I would have bell bottoms on and an arena full of cigarette smoke and um yeah, it was just 1976 is when it came out. There's the font I was telling you about.
Right, right.
um I wish I would have got to experience it back in the day. But yeah, so like, when I listen to this, I feel like I at least get a time travel a little bit back to the 70s. Rolling Stone said that Detroit's got the best rock and roll fans. Shit, I've known that for 10 years. But again, like with Cheap Trick,
Can you come
your
close my door?
your biggest your most popular version of Turn the Page is from that. What's your memories of this?
I the first time I heard Traveling Man and Beautiful Loser, and I heard the studio versions like it once again, and two separate songs, and they just it when the transition comes from Traveling Man to Beautiful Loser, and you hear that crowd erupting when the transition comes to that song, it's just gives me chills.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Bob Seger's 80 now. It's just crazy. And you know what's great if you get time to dig into it is Glenn Fry was in Detroit, and that was his mentor. Like Glenn Fry went to Bob Seger. Hey, Bob Seger wasn't huge at this point, but he did have some records and stuff. And Bob Seger's the one that kind of gave him some pointers and told him about writing and you know you got to write your own songs. Well, what if they suck? Bob's like, they're going to suck, but you got to get better at it.
Another thing is when you hear that beginning of the turn your page, you get those
Yeah.
chills just because
Down. And like I said, it's something that you can like mood wise, it just goes, it flows like
we got to stop this podcast so I can go play that album right now, Josh. That's how
uh,
that's the feeling I get right now.
all right. So we got Cheap Trick live at Budokan. We've got Bob Seger, Live Bullet. What do you got there, Dave Nadelman?
So this album, if it's not in your collection, what the fuck are you even doing? What are you doing?
Is it the Carpenters
It is not the
live at
Carpenters.
Cobo Hall?
There's nothing wrong with the Carpenters. Don't get me started with the Carpenters. Um, but my number two is the Allman Brothers Band live at the Fillmore East.
Live, is it 1971?
It is 1971. This album, so first of all, this album is probably their most famous. I mean, that's the album you hear of a lot when you're talking about live albums. This is a two album disc. Now, one side of one album is a 23-minute version of Whipping Post that it just goes on and on. But the thing about this album is there's one song here that made this album that is a cover. They did a cover of oh Willie Cobb maybe. Willie
Oh,
Cobb did
yeah, Willie.
You don't love me, and it's they played that not expecting this to be on a live, not expecting this to be a live album. Um, but this is essential for me because
That
Statesboro Blues,
Whipping
Done Somebody
Post,
Wrong,
Whipping
huh?
Post on there? Whipping
Whipping
Post?
Post is on Whipping Post. It's a 23
Yeah.
minute rendition of Whipping Post,
Yeah. Um,
and it takes up all of side four.
and
That's all there is on the side is Whipping Post, 23 minutes of it.
if you like bass, I mean, to me, I always loved Barry Oakley's playing on that live version of Whipping Post. Um,
That
oh,
definitely for me is a speaker testing
mhm.
version of that song just because the guitar goes on and the bass and oh, so
So,
good.
so hold up the front cover.
Uh,
All right. Um, so from what I remember reading and stuff is if you hold it up a little bit more. So Dwayne Allman is the second from the left. If you look down at his hands, pull it up a little bit higher, he's kind of hiding something with his hand, and the other guys are laughing, looking at him. All right. All right. I want to see your face now. Um, from what I understand, he's holding some illegal narcotic and trying to hide it in the photo. And that's why they're laughing.
Interesting. I did not
Now,
know that.
flip the back cover to us. I want to say this is
Oh, okay.
the first album cover to show their roadies. So lift it up a little bit higher. So there's their roadies. I know they're all cool guys because most of them are drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yeah, they are.
Now lower it a little bit. And you see the painting of the guy or the picture up on the wall
Yeah.
there. That's their tour manager, who, when they took that picture, was in jail because he had stabbed someone,
You just-
So there's a little history that I know about the record. Um, so, and I think they did what? One more studio record after that, maybe with Dwayne Allman before he was killed. Right after this.
Yeah, I think so.
So Dwayne Allman, I don't know, when's that 72? So I thought Dwayne Allman died in 71. Let's see here. Um,
I mean, great. And no, you're right. Sorry,
yeah.
Dwayne Allman. Yeah.
So Dwayne Allman died in 71. Um, so let me see what this how this went. That's at the Fillmore East, right? Live at the Fillmore
Yes.
East. So that was released June 6th of 71. And
And it was recorded in March of 71. It was released in June, but it was recorded over 3 days in March of 71.
so Dwayne Allman's killed a few months later. Um, so what's crazy is so Dwayne Allman's killed in 71 riding a motorcycle. Um, I think he hits the back of a truck that's turning or something. Okay. A year later, maybe a mile away from that spot, the bass player dies in a motorcycle accident. You could literally, I've watched someone's video of it. If you're at the site where Dwayne Allman
Dwayne?
was killed in the motorcycle wreck, go down a city street like 2 blocks, like a residential neighborhood, take a left, go down 2 more blocks. You're at the site where Barry Oakley was killed, the bass player.
And how
Um,
far apart was that?
it's only like a mile.
No, no, no. I mean, how far? How long of a
Maybe a
time?
year, about a
Okay.
year. Yep. I think Barry, I mean Barry is so Dwayne Allman. Um, Dwayne Allman was he died on October 29th, 1971, and Barry Oakley died November 11th, 1972. So a little bit over a year apart. And this is before even one of their other bigger hits, Ramblin' Man, which Dickie Betts um, wrote. So where did you know, because weren't the Allman Brothers, I mean, I know they're like considered a Georgia band, but didn't they grow up in Florida?
I believe they grew up in, I want to say Tallahassee,
They so they grew up in Daytona Beach, Florida,
Daytona Beach. Okay.
and their dad was murdered by like a hitchhiker or something when they were really young. Um, you know, talking about all the good stuff here.
Yeah, lots of death,
Um,
Josh. We're talking about lots of death. So I wasn't into the Allman Brothers Band when I was younger. It's one of those ones as I got into my 20s and I started to appreciate more and more. They were using back then they were, I think they had a lot of songs in like commercials for grocery stores or something, or picnic type things. And um but I think it was maybe 20 years ago I picked up this album first and just listened to it all the way through, especially, that rendition of Whipping Post is just it just puts you in that mood.
so I used to bartend. I don't know, I bartended like I don't know, say 2003 to 2013 while I was in the military, going to school, stuff like that. And then before that, I was at the bar, late 90s and stuff. And there's always a lot older people than me, and that was popular jukebox stuff, the Allman Brothers. Now, to me, I could, especially if they're playing fucking whipping post, like they're getting their fucking quarters worth. But um, it wasn't that great of drinking music to me. Now, one of my proudest moments in my life of like recovery was I remember being, I've probably told the story before, but I was at the bar that I'd worked at and I was drinking and I was with this girl. And this was back when the jukeboxes had the CDs. So you would push through. Now I worked there, so I knew I knew everything was on there, but I'm pushing it. And I look at this girl that's with me and I go, "Hey, Melissa," you know, telling her, you getting her attention. "Hey, Melissa." Now, as I'm saying this, my mind hears this. "Hey, Melissa, that's not her name." I see her whip her head and look at me because I just called her not her name. And I go, "Is a great song by the Allman Brothers. Let's see if it's on here." And I
That
knew
is,
it was. And there it
did she,
is.
did she buy it?
Yeah, she had to. I mean, and I was just like, "Oh God, that's fucking Hall of Fame shit right there."
That is Hall of Fame shit.
But yeah, that's my Allman Brothers story. An album I got into with the that I got into. I can't even remember how I got into it. I think I probably got it for like a buck 20, 30 years ago. Um, was um, Dickie Betts. And I'm trying to um, Highway Call came out in 74. It's kind of like country rock. Um, but that was a an album I liked, you know, but like I said, I was never a big Allman Brothers guy. Uh, I don't think many of those guys, talking about bands and brands, I don't think many of those guys, I mean, Greg's passed, Wayne, Barry's, they're obviously gone. The Trucks, the drummer, he, committed suicide maybe 10 years ago. I think just the one guy that played like percussion is the only guy left. Um, Dickie Betts passed away just a year or two ago.
Right, right, right.
So again, a band that's not around now. You do have offshoots, kind of. You got Government Mule, which had Warren Hayes, who played in um, Allman Brothers, and you got the Tedeschi Trucks band,
Tedeschi
which
trucks, yeah.
which has
Fantastic.
the son of Derek Trucks, or whatever. Um, so yeah, so but again, that's way before my time. So I don't. I wish I could tell stories of when it came out and how groundbreaking
Well,
it
when it came out,
was.
I was two, so or three, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known.
But yeah. So number two. So you got Cheap Trick Budokan and you
Allman
got
Brothers live at
Live at the
Fillmore East.
Fillmores. So my number two, it's kind of like,
You're not gonna throw in any extras because you
I gave you my extras.
okay, okay, okay.
So my number two, again, transporting me back to the 70s. Um, And I listen to this a lot because, again, um, being, 1990, 89, you don't have a lot of money. I can buy one record and I had Great Gonzos and I had this Ted Nugent
Nugent.
double live Gonzo. And to me, I remember being on my paper route listening to this, just like, God, that would have been so great to be at this show. And
There was
now
a Great
it's
Gonzo's. Is that Great Gon? There's a Great Gonzo's live, right?
that's Great Gonzo Live. This is it.
Okay, right, right, okay.
Yeah.
And there's just Great Gonzo's, which is the greatest hits.
Which is the greatest hits. So that came out a little bit later. And I think it included a couple of these songs on there. Um, but uh, yeah, I mean, so there's like a love hate with Nugent. Like those first 75 to 77, the self-titled record, Free for All, Cat Scratch Fever, this. Those four albums came out in a row. Phenomenal. And then you get like Weekend Warriors and Screen
Green Dream
Dream,
and
uh,
yeah,
and then you
intensities, and
and yeah, that didn't quite. And then you get into the self-titled Ted Nugent record, which it's horrible. But um, yeah, that period, right? That 2, 3 year period, you get um, this, and you still got the band, Cliff Davies, Rob Grange, Derek St. Holmes, and starts out with, and it was before you start getting a little bit, I don't know, like it just gets a little bit more like silly as you get farther down the Nugent line. Um, but it wasn't quite silly yet. Yeah, you had Yank Me, Crank Me, but um, just what the doctor ordered. Even silly like Wayne Dang, Sweet Pooh Tang, fucking phenomenal, right? You're facing like a Maserati, Cat Scratch Fever, Stormtrooper, Motor City Madhouse, Stranglehold, Baby Please Don't Go, um, Great White Buffalo, right? Like Great White Buffalo wasn't on the greatest hits. Yank Me Crank Me wasn't. Stormtroopin' wasn't. So all these great live songs um, are on here. Um, I learned from this album that Nashville had some great pussy. You know, I'm 12 years old going, I need to go to fucking Nashville. All right. And it wasn't for fucking steel guitars and shit. Um, but yeah, so now there's been some stuff where, how live is this? I know Nugent doesn't really like this. He thinks like Stranglehold's too slow and stuff like that. Um, but again, to me, it's more about the feel. And it's just, man, when I just want some unapologetic rock, just loud, this is um, the record to go to. So, yeah, Great White Buffalo, phenomenal on here. I know Nugent hates this version that's on there, but whatever, Ted.
but then some of those songs on there, like we said, are you're used to that version sometimes more than
Mhm.
the
Yeah, I
studio
mean,
version.
to me, this is the my version of Great White Buffalo. I mean, I probably most people too. I don't know, um, but yeah, I think this, I think on the Great Gonzo Live, I think um, maybe Please Don't Go and Wayne Dang Sweet Putang are both on that. And I remember I had a compilation too, like, Hard and Heavy or, one of these 80s
Right,
compilations
right.
that had Yank Me, Crank Me on it. So I
Is that a
had,
double? Is that a double LP?
yeah, yeah. And it was a double CD. So, back in the day, you really had to make an investment if you were doing, um, buying a CD version. I think I had a cassette tape, but, um, yeah, Ted Nugent, 1978, I think this was released. I know the recordings are from 76 and 77. Yeah, 1978. So there you go. You got any old memories of Ted Nugent?
So I recently acquired, I don't have that album, but I recently acquired Great Gonzos.
Hmm.
And I've just
That's a.
been backlogged where I haven't had a chance to throw it on yet. But
I listened to a lot of that, and especially Great Gonzo's. Again, I had a paper route from, I don't know, 1989 to early 93. So like, I don't know, from like 11, 12 to 15.
so you on your bike whipping your newspaper to
Well,
neighbors
listen, I had one
saying,
of
"I
the
want
biggest,
my $2." Is that what?
I had one of the biggest paper routes in the city, and it was over hills. I had a whole bunch of hills. So my paper route took me probably 50 minutes. Now I made more bank than everybody else. but my paper route took longer. Um, so I had a good amount of time every day to listen. I could almost get through a side A and side B of records. Some I could easily. Um, so doing that for 3 or 4 years, and you don't have like it isn't like you got Spotify where you can just
Right.
choose that. I got a certain selection of what I can listen to. So there's some albums from that era that, man, I listened to a fucking lot. And I'm young and I did have nice earbuds, like little ones that fit right in my fucking ears, Sony's. And dude, yeah, I mean, that's probably where I lost my first part of my hearing was doing that paper route, blasting it for 4 years in a row. But that is my number two
I
essential
want my $2.
live record from the 70s. So, Dave Nadelman, what is your number one essential record?
So this is not my number one live album of all time. This is my number two live album of all time. Can't give you my number one album of all time because it's not, it's from the 80s. But it was close to the 70s, so it almost snuck in. Anyway, my number two live album of all time, favorite live album of all time, and my number one for the era of the 70s is, let's see how this shine, is Wings Over America.
Wings Over America. The Wings featuring Danny Lane.
So I remember listening to Wings and, past Beatles stuff, but before, just my parents used to listen to a lot of Wings and silly love songs and I didn't think about it. And then one day my friend who was the first car, he was the first car of our,
Hmm.
growing up. Um, and it had one of those cassette players that were transformed from a 8-track. You would stick
Hmm.
the 8-track in and it had the CD, it had the cassette adapter. Um, and he had this album on cassette, a couple of cassettes. This is a 3 LP album, so it's a lot. But it's got everything from silly love songs to listen to what the man said, let him in. And it's kind of that thing where, yeah, the studio versions are great of those songs, but something just a little differently about
Hmm.
these, the way Paul puts it in.
Well, too, and it's like with most music, it takes you to a time period which you experienced, with just like you said with the car and your buddies, you know, you probably had 5 cassette tapes to choose from, and um, I can't give much on it because I was just never, just haven't got that far, to Wings, like I know their songs, but I've never gotten into their records. Um,
So you're not a Wings fan. You just don't know.
I know their hits, you know, but I mean, I love the Beatles. Um, I was more John Lennon 70s than I was Paul McCartney. Um, uh, Nothing against Paul McCartney's 70s, just I just gravitated to all of those Lennon songs and records. And
Where I gravitated to McCartney, and then
I mean,
now it nowadays I'm more George Harrison than.
mm, back then, back in the 90s, I was very much Lennon. I wouldn't touch Wings. Like what I've heard, I'm not a Wings guy. I like Lennon. Now, when I've gotten older, like whatever, I don't give a shit. But I still, you know, Wings. I just kind of
And then a lot of it carried on from what when my mom used to
yeah,
play.
yeah.
She used to
Well, it's how
put
it
those
is
on, and it
with
just transformed. I was like, well, I can listen to this stuff forever.
so yeah. Like I said, and then Wings. I mean, for those that don't know, I guess I mean Wings was the band that Paul McCartney put together after the breakup of the Beatles, pretty much all the 70s. His wife was in
His
the
wife
band.
Linda, yep.
Um, Denny Lane was in the band, who I think was in the Moody Blues for a while before that. And then I don't know, the other guys, I don't know, but Yeah, I mean, Band on the Run. I always say Band on the Run. It's like it's almost like three hit songs because it starts out, you got this one like, oh, it's fucking rocks, and then it changes into a whole nother
Yeah.
song. All right, this fucking is catchy, and then you get the chorus, which is catchy. It's like, man, you got three big hooks. You should have separated that shit and made three songs. But
The Foo Fighters do an amazing cover of Band on the Run on one of their albums too. It's on one of their albums, but it's so good.
so your number one. So my number one,
And
like,
this is 1976, so that's when this album was released.
so they still had some years after that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I'm not sure exactly when it broke up, but yeah. So my number one, you might get a hint.
Yeah, I was waiting for it.
Um, is maybe not the most popular live album from this band, but it was my live album, Kiss Alive 2. So when I was getting into Kiss, what do I get? Right? I got the fucking double cassette Kiss Alive 2 because I knew more of those songs than on Kiss Alive. Um, and so, this was my live record. Now, Kiss Alive, it could be argued, kicked off the live album explosion in the 70s. This probably right along with Peter Frampton, but I think this was first. This took off in 1975. Now, this record was kind of what live records were. Their first three studio albums bombed. The record company doesn't have money. It's too expensive to go do a studio record. Let's do a live record. So this record really put Kiss on the map, 1975. They do three studio records after that. Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over, Love Gun. Late 1977, they're going to do a live two, and it's just live songs from the albums after Alive. So Alive was the first three albums. Alive 2 was the next three albums.
So did they take them from various concerts or did they take them all from one
So,
show?
let's get into that in a little bit.
Okay.
Um, so again, just these photos were just so fucking great. That Gene Simmons, Ace. Um, Now I didn't have the vinyl back then. Uh, like I said, I'd gotten the cassette, but I'm sure there's people out there that had this. You know, you imagine being 1977, and you got to remember there's no internet, so these are what you studied, just like we did in the 80s. Look at that. Who the hell wouldn't want to go to a Kiss show? But I did have that. Now, if you bought the record, now this is a reissue from 2014. I just grabbed it because I knew I had everything in it. You got a booklet, and back then you would have gotten the tattoo sheet. But again, 1989, 1990, um, I got Kiss Smashes and Thrashes because I was in seventh grade and there was a girl I liked named Beth. I got Record Music Club. I see the name Beth, Kiss. I didn't know the song, but I fucking like that girl in seventh grade, right? So I got Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits. I really didn't know much about Kiss. I knew Tears Are Falling from the
Right,
radio,
right, right, right.
or more. I knew from Night Ranger guest VJ because Brad Gillis played Tears Are Falling video on when they did the guest VJ in '85. I knew I'd seen Hot in the Shade videos, um, but when I got that Smashes and Thrashes, I listened to Beth. I'm like, whatever, it's okay. But I put in the record. I just remember two songs stuck out: Detroit Rock City and Love Gun. Like they were just mystical and like they came out like when I was born because I had the years, 76 and 77, and it just like wow, something's here. So Detroit Rock City, Love Gunner on here. So I knew, okay, I know those songs. Again, there's not quite a greatest hits. There was double platinum, which I don't know if I knew existed at the time, but I had the greatest hits. So now I'm kind of, so I grabbed this and it's just bombastic. Detroit Rock City, King of the Nighttime World.
Nighttime World tip.
It makes songs that even aren't that great good. Ladies Room, right? Fucking phenomenal on this record. It's not that great a song. The best Ace Frehley solo is the version on here, Making Love. Go listen to the live 2 version of Making Love and listen to Ace Frehley solo, who just passed last month or
Right.
so. Um, Phenomenal. Now there are a couple duds. I was never a big Tomorrow and Tonight fan. Hard Luck Woman is okay on here. But then you get like, side 2, you got I Stole Your Love, Beth, God of Thunder. Like God of Thunder on here is phenomenal. Peter Pissed on the drums. Um, and then what, is kind of neat is you have side 4 is all studio.
Studio, yeah.
Now, 2 of the songs are kind of turds, All American Man and Rockin' in the USA. But 2 songs are really good, Larger Than Life and Rocket Ride. And I don't mind the Dave Clark 5 cover any way you want
And
it.
those were those unreleased
Those were
before
all
this?
new. Those were all new songs. Yep. So now some trivia stuff. So there is a version of this out there that has a different song listing. I know track 2 is Take Me and not King of the Nighttime World. If you have that listing, that album's probably, God, it's probably 400, $500 now. Um, but there is a different track listing. I said no, track 2 is Take Me.
So
I don't,
not a reissue or
no. There were some copies that got pressed with the wrong song titles on the back. So it would say Detroit Rock City, but track 2 would be Take Me. And there's a few others that are different, but I know number 2 is Take Me. So there's that. So this is said to be recorded at the LA Forum a couple nights in 77. Yet, if you find the unedited raw audio of that, Hard Luck Woman and Tomorrow Tonight are not on the set list. Those are recorded live at Soundchecked. They didn't play those live.
oh, okay.
So Hard Luck Woman, Tomorrow Tonight. Now, Kiss Alive, the first one, it's come out that a lot of it was doctored in the studio. Um, Kiss Alive is phenomenal, the first one. I mean, phenomenal. This is phenomenal, but it's got my sentiment, from being a kid and having it. The other thing was, Kiss, it's very common that some of the members don't play on recordings. It first happened on Destroyer. Ace didn't show up to a session, and they got Dick Wagner from the Alice Cooper band to play the guitar solo on Sweet Pain. On this, Ace wasn't around, so Bob Kulick plays on 4 of these studio tracks. That's Bob Kulick, not Ace Frehley. Ace Frehley only plays on the song that he wrote, which was Rocket Ride. So that's on the studio version of those. Um, so there you are. Like I said, check out Making Love, Ace Frehley's guitar solo. I always thought there's a drum solo on God of Thunder, and I always thought it said, he ends the drum solo hitting the bass drum and the cymbals, and you hear Paul Stanley go, Peter Criss on the drums. But to me, it always sounded like Peter Pissed on the drums. So, yeah, but there you go. Um, and I had a shirt like this Alive 2 shirt. I don't know why I remember this shit, but I was in Liberia, Africa for like 8 months back in 2011, and we couldn't mail shit home. We could get shit mailed to us, but we couldn't mail shit home. So, being there for 8 months, I, bought, some movies off of Amazon and I bought stuff there. and I could have 5 bags to, with me to take home. So I'm just giving shit away right before I leave to like all the Liberian army guys that was serving with,
To fill up your own shit, to fill up
just to
all
fill up my
your
own shit. So just giving them my clothes and any equipment that I didn't need. And, because I had like one big, like 2 bags just full of African carvings and artwork and shit. And I don't know, I forget what happened, but we're leaving and I couldn't fit a couple things into the bag. So I took out some more shirts that I had. And I think we're driving down the road, and I'm back and, repacking some stuff. I took out a couple shirts and we're in the city, head to the airport, and there's some African kids, here on the side. And I go, hey guys. And I tossed them a couple shirts. And I taught one of them was a Kiss Alive 2 shirt. And so I always thought, whenever I watched anything like National Geographic, anything like, Liberia, I always kept an eye out to see if I see that Kiss Alive 2 shirt out there somewhere. But yeah, that was my, live album when I was a kid, man. I fucking played that non-stop. So there you are, Kiss Alive 2. So what do you think? What do you think? Did we
I think we had a good list. I mean, those are I think everything we said was essential, or at least essential from, I mean, me not being an enormous Kiss fan, I'm gonna go buy that album now just because you sold it.
so texted, you know, Night Ranger guys, texted my buddy John Nyman from
YNT.
YNT. Nyman, big 70s guy, but he is 70s, rock.
Yeah,
Um, so I asked him what his, hey, give me a 70s. So him and Jack. So I got Jack Blades, both said the same album. I went to find it. I know I own it. I know I own it on CD. I could have swore I owned it on vinyl. I guess I don't own it on vinyl. I could because there's so much shit. God knows where it could be. But I didn't know. I don't have it on CD, so I don't know. You know what? Maybe I was just hallucinating. But Nyman and Jack Blades' favorite live album. I think it just hits the 70s. The Who,
Live at
Live at
Leeds.
Leeds, which, like I said, I own. I've listened to a few times. Just like nothing, I think with me resonated, to where I was
Right.
like, I got to listen to it 100 times. But, um, I was always, to me, I mean, I love, there's a greatest hits album they had in the early 90s that covered everything. I love that. And,
Who's
who's
better?
next?
Who's best? Is that the one?
Yes, yes. I mean, it covered
Yeah.
early, late. Um, And then the Who's Next record was the record I really, really dug. Um, but yeah. So Jack Blades, John Nyman, The Who, live at Leeds. Um, let's see here. Uh, Gary Kelly, his Thin Lizzy, Live and Dangerous, 1978. And he told me it's the only one that's really live, because there's always stuff's
Right.
come out and stuff, um, which is not surprising. Like I said, me and Keri do talk Thin Lizzy a lot. Now I don't. I'm not a. I don't know I know the basics of Thin Lizzy. I don't know every record, um, but he I know for his birthday I got him a Thin Lizzy reissue. But Keri Kelly favorite live record, Live and Dangerous, 1978. There you go. Um, Eric Levy. Now, I don't fucking know this. but I don't know jazz. When I sent him when I text him, he's like, I do, but I doubt anyone's heard it. I'm like, just tell me. I'm going to say Andrea Crouch and the Disciples. I'm going to assume it's jazz, but
Don't know
he's
it.
like, um, uh, my mom had it on vinyl and played it in heavy rotation. Andrea's piano playing was a huge impact on me. The auxiliary keyboards are sick too. Band full of LA session heavyweights. I still listen regularly to this day. It's like disco gospel music, super funky. So there you go. Andrea, Andrae, Crouch, and the Disciples live in London, early
A
70s.
R A U
Um, Andrae, and then Crouch, Crouch.
Crouch.
Live in London. 1978. So there you go. You got some Eric Levy. Um, and then, if you have been listening to the podcast forever, Kelly Kagi, you should know one live album because we talked about it. But guess what? His favorite live album, the extended version of The Who live at Leeds.
Did you
So
just get that in?
no, no, no.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, at the same time, earlier today when I was texting everyone. Um, so the extended version of Who Live. So live at Leeds, again, this is one of those things where we didn't experience it. Like what was, it's like I need to get with the guys. What was it about live at Leeds? Like what did that? Um, but the other album, the first concert he ever went to, and the first I have like four versions of this, and of course I grabbed the shittiest one. Three Dog Night, captured live at the Forum. This was his first concert, and I think he said he's over here, maybe off to the side. So there you go.
He said he was at the show
He
of
was
that
at
recording.
this was his first show, and he's in the picture. Well, I mean, he's in the crowd there. He was sitting over here, he said. And so this and Live at Leeds are his favorite records. Um, and you could say his first appearance on a record is Three Dog Night, captured live at the Forum. I think this is 1970. Um, thing with the back then, they didn't always put the dates on records like they do now. Um, but
And no barcode, so you can't like scan it in Discogs or something.
Three Dog Night discography, studio albums, live albums, captured live at the Forum. Release October 16th, 1969. So, recorded July 14th, released October 16th. We'll give him a little leeway.
It's Kelly. We can give him the leeway.
So there you go. Live at Leeds, you gotta
And Live at
dig it,
Leeds was just made it.
and then like again, you got I'm sure I mean, God, Aerosmith had, the live album from the 70s. I'm going to pull this up because I made a list here of albums. Um, so now a live album that I really dig is Johnny Cash live at Folsom Prison.
Folsom Prison.
Um,
I thought that would have been one of yours.
well, that would have been 60s. Um,
Yeah, I didn't know where it would. I didn't. I wasn't sure where it would sit.
and now um, there is, there is live at San Quentin, but I think live at Folsom Prison's better. Um, Cocaine Blues, 25 minutes to go, Long Black Veil. Um, now San Quentin has good ones, but um, I just think Folsom Prison, that live at Folsom Prison, I will buy every copy I see if it's a good price and give it to people. Like I do that with Humble Pie Smoking record. I just went, looking at records. I got three in there. I just gave one that I just bought to my brother. So there's certain records like I always buy. The San Quentin Johnny Cash record is one. Um, so an album I know people mention, which I never really got into the band, and I'm sure they're great. It's just something that um, I'm I just haven't experienced is Little Feat. I know there's a lot of people that are big, um, Little Feat, Get Your Yayas Out, uh, by the Stones. I know, and I thought about it, but I know there's going to be people that say Made in Japan by Deep Purple. Um, that is, and I like that record, but that's one that I know is popular. Um, obviously, um, I think Motorhead. I think theirs is in the early '80s, so maybe we got to do that um, on the '80s one. But trying to find my list here of, like I said, I know the Made in Japan. What was it? So, did you ever get into MC5? I think that's
No.
late '60s. Kick out the jams, motherfucker. Um, that was another one I thought of. Um, there are like I know like the historical significance, like the Miles Davises and stuff, where they have live here, 1961. But again, I just don't know, um, that stuff. I know a lot of people did. There was a Grateful Dead record that I know a lot of my buddies played, had like a rainbow on it. Um, but that was a '70s live record. I'm sure a lot of people are probably going to say, you know, you're missing out on or not mentioning.
Well, that's why people can put that in the comment below.
And, like I said, I know there's like Miles Davis, James Brown, stuff like that. I just, I got, I know James Brown and I do have like Live at the Apollo, but I would assume that's probably '60s sometimes. So, yeah. So I guess my question would be for everybody out there is, did you do the greatest hits thing? Like, did you buy a live record when you were younger because it had the hits? Um, and obviously, what are your favorites? But I like to hear like the sentimental ones. Like, I know Live 2 is not the best live record out there, but it's my live record, right? Kiss Alive historically is going to be the Kiss record people go to. Yours probably again Wings. Your
Yep.
parents played it in Wings, and your buddy had the the 8-track converter. So I'd like to hear what are people's 70s, live stuff. So give us your feedback. Let us know. Um, of course, tell put on there, hey, Josh's picks are better. Bob Seger,
That's
what
a
was my
fire pick, Josh. I'm not going to take that away from you.
Ted Nugent, Kiss. I mean, I guess you are going with a Beatle, Wings. You are going with the Allman Brothers. What was your third one? Cheap
Cheap
Trick.
Trick.
So yeah, I mean that's pretty strong.
Not as good as yours, though. Not as strong
No,
as
I mean
yours.
listen, you're never going to. I mean, it's just
I know.
it's like I
I would have had to pick Kiss Alive 2, Bob Seger, and whatever your third one was. I don't even
Ted
remember
Nugent.
anymore. Yeah, him.
Yeah.
Even
Um,
if I picked those, Josh, I still think your picks would have been better.
I would have trumped you, man. I would have said live at Leeds, and you know who backs me? Fucking Kelly Kagi, Jack Blades, John Nyman. And then I would have came out with, you know, I don't know. I would came up with something, man. So, all right. Good talking to you, brother.
Yes, always, always.
1970 rock live albums. Give us your feedback. Let us know. All right, Florida man.
Well,
Good
tell them, Josh.
talking.
Tell them where to find us. Tell them we
Oh
got to
man,
find us on the
listen,
Facebook. Find us on the.
listen.
They should know by now, right? They should know where
Uh,
to find us by now.
listen. I'm about ready to go underground, man. So don't find us. Don't find us on Facebook in the search bar, Fans of Motion Night Ranger. Don't find us on Instagram.
Don't
Don't
find us on YouTube. Do not find us on YouTube.
do not click subscribe.
Do not hit a thumbs up.
Yeah, hit the thumbs down like our relatives and our listeners do. Um, and while you're at it, go join the Kiss Army. All right, Dave, tell
Peace,
all
brother.
the lady listeners goodbye.
They know. They know. It's never always. It's never a final goodbye with them, Josh. Just see you later.
We'll
See
see
you
all
later.
we'll see all two of you later.